What is up everybody? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the recent Summit Reward, the HuP 1 Clumsy Edition. What's kind of funny is I actually thought this car was going to look exactly like the Marco's cab. Honestly guys, it doesn't really look all that similar, plus this car is going to have inward camber. My goodness, the handling on this thing was honestly kind of interesting, but one thing I can say for sure though, I actually would say the Clumsy Edition is going to be a lot better in multiple ways. So for one, I really do think this car actually looks pretty awesome for what they did do with it. You guys will see on the side there, you have like the gas thing coming out the side there, which is kind of funny. In the back, you also see a fire extinguisher plus some signs and stuff like that. So I do like the detail of it. Plus, when you guys are driving this car as well, the back of the door is going to open. You will also see the driving school ivory tower. So I think this thing is pretty dope. The mirror on the side's going to be broken, all the scratches all over it, plus the duct tape holding it together. Also, the front light's going to be broken there as well. Plus, we will have a sign of a moose on the front, so I do have to give Ubisoft credit with the way they designed the detail of this car. Like, this thing is actually pretty awesome looking. Also, the emblem on the front of this vehicle looks like one of those things you'd see on like a fire hydrant, so I really do have to give it to Ubisoft with this vehicle. What's kind of funny as well is I was kind of mixed when I saw this car. I kind of had a weird feeling it was going to handle really bad or something like that, and when I saw the Marco's cab, I was like, you know what, this car is probably going to be just as bad with the way it drives, and I'm sure a lot of players were also wondering this when they did have to test this thing out in that event. My goodness, this thing was a challenge to drive in that, but nonetheless though guys, let's go do an outside look of this vehicle right now, and then take this thing on a top speed test. So when taking an outside look of this vehicle, I'm sure you guys are going to notice a lot of detail as I did mention before. It's kind of funny seeing a vehicle like this because they definitely put the time into making this thing kind of unique. I'm really glad they made this car a bit different than the Marco's cab as I did mention as well. That thing was honestly one of the most annoying cars to drive. It looks kind of cool, but my goodness, the handling is non-existent with that car, and I would definitely say the Clumsy Edition is going to be better. And not only that though, I'm also kind of surprised because with this car being kind of a classic, I was honestly not expecting it to sound all that good, but to be honest, it doesn't sound as bad as I thought it was going to. But now besides all that, let's go see what the top speed of the Clumsy Edition is actually going to be. So as you guys will see, the door is now opening. I notice that normally happens when you accelerate, and I guess when you hit the brakes it's going to close, hit the gas it will then open again. Also, like the gas nozzle there is also going to kind of fly up a bit when you're driving, so this thing's definitely pretty cool. I'm kind of surprised again with the detail of it, and it's kind of surprising as well because I was kind of expecting this car to be kind of slow, but it turns out though, compared to some of the other vehicles, guys, the top speed of this car is going to be around 245 miles per hour, making it one of the faster street cars in the game. It's still kind of funny to me how some of the older cars in the game do like 235. We're also going to have the S1 Icebreaker Edition in the Motor Pass that does 222. It is kind of insane how slow some of the street cars actually are, even to this day, and I do feel like having a lower top speed on some of the vehicles are going to end up hurting them long term. Like if you guys did want to do some of the longer events, like most of the races with the S1 is most likely going to be a bit of a nightmare, so I would say the Clumsy Edition is not going to be slow. I would say many players are most likely not expecting the Clumsy Edition to be as fast as it is. When I was driving this vehicle in that test event, I was like, oh man, this thing's probably going to be pretty terrible. It's going to be a lot better than I thought, not only when it comes to top speed, but also its handling. So if we were to base the Clumsy Edition off the first impressions when you guys had to drive this thing in the Summit, I would say most players are most likely not going to use this vehicle ever again. If this thing was like that once again with pro settings on it, I was like, you know what, let's give this car a slight benefit of the doubt and maybe this thing would actually be pretty decent with some pro settings and like a nitro chemist set. And well, it turns out I would actually say this car is going to be a lot better than I initially thought. Don't get me wrong though, I wouldn't say this car is going to be like the fastest thing in the street class, but then again I was not expecting the Clumsy Edition to really take over the Countach. That would probably be one of the funniest things ever, to have something like a car like this from the 30s that can actually beat the Countach as a meta vehicle. I feel like that would throw everybody off, including myself, but overall I would say the handling on this car is probably going to be what you would expect with something like this type of suspension on it. I mean, once again, I would not expect a car from the 30s to be able to handle like a Lamborghini Superleggera. And one thing I was noticing, by the way, is if you guys are driving this car and approaching the turns at insane speeds, I was noticing the car isn't going to be able to fly around that corner like you normally would expect it to. I noticed the front would like almost hop a little bit when it would try to get around the corner. So do keep that in mind. I would try to slow down just a little bit more than you normally would, but luckily, one of the big positives about the Clumsy Edition is going to be its speed. I was noticing even with this thing being a 5-speed, my goodness, it would get up to speed pretty fast with Nitro Chemist, and I was noticing myself using manual. The car really wasn't that annoying to drive either. I'm sure a lot of players are most likely not a big fan of manual in this game, and if you were to use something like a 4 and or a 5-speed, I feel like they can get kind of annoying. I was noticing one of the biggest challenges with these cars is most likely trying to be in the right gear when you do go around certain corners. I would say the Clumsy Edition is not going to be an issue in that aspect, and I would say one of the biggest positives if you guys did get this vehicle is, my goodness, it is so much better than the Marco's cab a while ago. That thing was honestly a nightmare. It does look kind of cool, but with that inward camber in the front with those big tires in the back, I would honestly say no one's going to ever use that car in any of the events, but I really do think the Clumsy Edition's easily usable in everything. Not only would I say the handling is probably going to shock a lot of players, but the overall speed of this car is also going to be pretty dang good. And one of the bigger positives as well, guys, is I really do like the design of this car as well. Having the gas nozzle stick out of the gas thing there. We're also going to have the moose sign stuck on the front grille. Then we'll have like that weird nozzle thing on the front as like an emblem. Then obviously when you guys are driving, the back of the car is going to open, showing you some cool stuff in the back of the thing as well. So I do have to give it to Ubisoft actually making this car look pretty awesome, almost like a summit worthy type of vehicle. But I would recommend giving the Clumsy Edition a try in the aspect of this thing being pretty decent, and it's probably going to be one of those cars many players most likely didn't expect it to actually handle that well, especially the overall first impressions when using this thing in that summit, my goodness. But overall, guys, let me know your thoughts on the Clumsy Edition in the comments below, and here are the settings I'm currently running on this vehicle.